Robert Caro, the legendary biographer of Lyndon Baines Johnson, has just released a book on an unlikely subject, himself. That seemed reason enough to pay him a call. So this is where the magic happens. You have
the only decorations in Robert Caro's New York City office are the outlines of his next book tacked on the walls and the manual typewriter on which he is hammering it out.
So why do you do that? Why did you never go to computers?
To slow myself down. So I write my first drafts over in longhand, because that's the slowest way of committing your thoughts to paper.
No one can accuse 83-year-old Robert Caro of rushing his work. He's devoted his life to investigating and reporting on just two figures. Robert Moses, the urban planner who never held elected office, but whose roads, bridges, and buildings and parks helped shape New York City more than any mayor or governor in the 20th century. And Lyndon Johnson, who held every high office in Washington, including President of the United States. After more than 40 years and 4 books about Johnson, he's trying to complete the 5th and final installment. He says they are not biographies, but studies in power.
You talk about power, and we all know the old thing, power corrupts and all that. But you make a point of saying that it also causes things to happen.
What I think power always does, Bob, is reveal. When you are climbing, trying to get power, often you have to conceal what you really intend to do or how you're doing it. Because if people saw that, they might disagree with your aims or not be afraid of the way you're doing it and not want to give you more power.
Johnson always knew just how far that power would go.
His first rule was never tell a man to go to hell unless you can make him.
Exactly. That was a great rule, yes.
I've always thought that Johnson not only had a great ability to explain to people why it was in their interest to be on his side,
right,
but also why it was not in their interest to be against him.
You know, John Connolly once said to me, Lyndon Johnson never forgot and he never forgave. And you didn't want to be on the wrong side of him.
Johnson was never afraid to go against conventional wisdom.
You know, when Johnson becomes president, Kennedy is assassinated. 4 days later, he has to give this speech to a joint session of Congress. And he's not even in the Oval Office yet. 4 of his speechwriters are gathered around his kitchen table writing the speech. So sometime late in the evening, wearing a bathrobe, Lyndon Johnson comes down and says, "How you doing?" They said, "We only know one thing. Don't make a priority of civil rights. Don't emphasize civil rights. If you do that, you're going to get the Southerners who control Congress angry, and they're going to stop your whole legislative program like they did with Kennedy." So it's a noble cause, but it's a lost cause. Don't take it up. Johnson says to them, well, what the hell's the presidency for then? And in his speech, of course, he says, our first priority is civil rights.
And he never gave up on that cause.
It is the effort of American Negroes to secure for themselves the full blessings of American life. Their cause must be our cause too, because it's not just Negroes, but really it's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice, and we shall overcome.
Johnson went on to score one legislative victory after another, but he also wielded his power to expand the war in Vietnam, and it tore the country apart.
Hey, LBJ, how many people have you killed today?
The criticism became so intense in 1968, Johnson decided not to seek re-election, hoping to spend full time on ending the war. But the war would go on for another 7 years, eventually taking the lives of 58,000 Americans and 3 million Vietnamese. Caro refuses to compare Johnson to the current president, but when the airwaves are filled with talk like this,
No politician in history, and I say this with great surety, has been treated worse or more unfairly.
To Robert Caro, it's just old news.
I think Lyndon Johnson felt the very same way, I can tell you that. He said, no president ever endured what I had to endure, yeah.
Has any president that you know about ever felt while he was in office that he was getting a good or fair press?
Not that I know about.
In his latest book, Working, Caro writes at length for the first time about himself, even sharing some of his best advice. Shut up and let the other guy talk.
I have to keep reminding myself, because I talk too much, to shut up. So the way I do it is to write SU in my notebooks. If you looked through my notebooks, you'd see a hell of a lot of SUs.
The one place Caro is never silent is on the page, and he says the end is in sight for his final book on LBJ.
Well, this, as a matter of fact, is what I've written so far. This is the manuscript of the last volume, as far as I've gotten. Yeah, the last page is 392.
Well, let me ask you this. If you had known these books were going to take this long, would you have embarked on this project, these projects?
Probably not. I had no idea. And I had no idea the Johnson books were going to take. You just keep coming across things that seem to you to be worth telling people. It seemed to me to be worth telling people about.
Well, I think we're glad you did.
Thank you.